viewers, now moving on, our next speaker is Sri Rajarshi Nandy, joining us from Kolkata, and he'll be speaking on the topic role of Bhakti and Shraddha in Tantropasana. A very brief introduction. Sri Rajarshi Nandy is an Upasaka, author and speaker on Hindu spiritual matter, particularly on topics related to Tantra sadhana and its relevance in modern times. He also conducts various Adhyatmic retreats to introduce and mentor people on the basics of the Devata sadhana. Thank you for accepting our invite, Rajarshi. Please go ahead with your session.
Namaste, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, great. It was wonderful listening to all the terrific scholars and the different perspectives. And thank you to Nitin and thank you to INDICA for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic. So before I start, let me just very briefly mention the relevance of though this topic deals with Vedic spirituality, and then there is a bit of what I will be speaking about is more of how Bhakti and Shraddha plays its role in tantric upasana paddhatis. So without going too deep into the relationship that the Vedic path had with the Tantric path, where there are all kinds of views and many scholarly people who have written and spoken about it, there is paths which overlap and paths which do not. More or less, let's just take for the sake of this discussion that as the great commentator on the Manusmriti mentioned, Kulluka Bhatta, that there are two Shrutis, one is the Vedika Shruti and one is the Tantrika Shruti. So we assume for the sake of this discussion that the Tantra Shastras are also very much a part of the larger gamut of the paths within Hindu Dharma. Now, in its fundamental development, the Tantras were extremely focused on the sadhana paddhati. There is the philosophical aspect of it, yes. There are texts which dealt with it, and also I'm just briefly going into the historicity of these things, so it's easier to for the listeners to understand. And I'm sure all scholars are already aware. But so as it developed as a sadhana paddhati, there were also, especially when the more heterodox or what we call the Bhairava Srota tantras developed from Kashmir, which were non-dual but not Advaitic in the Vedantic sense. This non-duality had certain different kind of flavors in it. They incorporated various practices and rituals, perhaps, which were there in already the Vedic path, with certain modifications which were done because the logic and the rationale that was given is that this is the path that Lord Shiva gives out, because in the Kali Yuga, the average people are not fundamentally fit to attain to the anugraha of the devatas following the paths that were there in the previous yugas. So therefore, out of his kindness, out of the five faces of Shiva, there are, which are the five, the amnas, the five directions of Tantra. There are streams of tantric karmakanda and paddhatis and mantras that come out. In certain texts, it mentions that there are at least 7 crore mantras that come out from Shiva, and he empowers them, and he sort of kind of to explain in a simpler language. It's more of he kind of gives an adesh to the mantras that they are to guide and help upasakas in the spiritual progress, whosoever serves those mantras. Serving of a mantra is basically following the requisite karmakanda, anusthana, japa, etc. paddhatis. Now, these mantras are not only linked to a specific deity, though we have modern understanding that Tantra Shastras are entirely about Devi Upasana, which is largely true. But the stream of mantras that comes out from Shiva includes all deities. There are mantras of Vishnu, there are mantras of Shiva himself, various forms of Shiva, Bhairava, Ganpati, Surya, everything is contained within it. And these mantras had a specific criteria. Criteria was that For an individual to be able to practice that, one needs to have an initiation. So Diksha was an absolutely integral part of the Tantric Karmakanda. Without the initiation, there is it's strictly barred to do sadhana of any of these mantras. So this was the original format, and not just original. Even today, the evolution of tantras that happened later with the development of more Shakta elements that came from Eastern India, plus the Srividya schools which were there already and developed more in South India, etc. Initiation is a mandatory process in the Tantric Upasana Paddhati. It's almost like a replica of the if you have the Vedic, if you take the Vedic system, it's like a parallel to the Upanayanam ceremony. Without the Upanayanam, you do not have the adhikara to do Veda Adhyayana or any of the Karma Kanda. Upanayanam is just the first stage. Of course, there's other, you have to learn it from a competent guru and other things. Similarly, in the Tantric system, the Diksha becomes absolutely mandatory. So after the initiation, regardless of the varna of the individual, and here there are different texts which have certain different prescriptions, and depending on which sampradaya gives prominence to which of the texts, they follow slight modification and the varna of the guru and the varna of the disciple, etc. But then there are other sampradayas that do not categorically make a distinction between the necessarily the varna of the guru should be higher. So especially those which are more inclined towards the Kaula Tantra, which is one of the branches of Tantra, in which according to acharyas like Abhinavagupta and others, which is perhaps the highest stream of the tantric practice. So in after initiation, there is a lot of the path involves excellent amount of an extreme amount of upasana. So there are mantras that have to be chanted, there are anushtanas that have to be done, there are various nitya karma, naimittika karma, etc. A lot of things have to be done, and based on that, the guru decides that whether he or she, the upasaka, is eligible for the next level of initiation. So there are not one but multiple levels of initiation. For example, if somebody is to practice a Mahavidya Upasana. And here the tantras are very clear that if it's what kind of mantra is being given to an individual, if it's a mantra of Shiva, if it's a mantra of Vishnu, if it's a mantra of Ganpati, it is still allowed for the guru to give an upadesham and for the upasaka to take the upadesham as the dictum and carry on. But when it comes to Mahavidya Upasana, then it specifies that the guru has to give what is known as an Abhisheka Diksha. Abhisheka Diksha is a specific process in which uh, the deformities, the ignorances, the malas, the three malas which are there in the the Shaiva and the Shakta tattvas. There are, so everybody is born with, there are three impurities. So those malas, the effect of that, any other blockages, etc., are removed via the process of the Abhisheka Diksha. And after the Abhisheka Diksha, he or she is allowed to do recitation, japa, practice of these tantrika, specifically Mahavidya mantras. And that applies for both, whether it's Srikula or Kalikula, either of the two. Now, the general perception has been that in all this process, where does bhakti or shraddha come into play? So there is a idea of, in fact, and there are many beautiful scholarly writings of great, vidwans and upasakas that, and this has been a topic of debate, whether the mantra sadhana, when it is being done, is the mantra sadhana, is it sufficient to continue the mantra sadhana as a technical process to get the anugraha of the devata, or is there something else that is also required? So, for example, a certain mantra may have a specification in the tantras that you need to chant it, say, so many lakhs of times, and this being Kali Yuga, so that will be 4 times. So, say 10 lakhs of the mantra japa is required under certain specifications to get a degree of closeness to the deity. That's the first Purushcharan, as we call it. The question is it sufficient to mechanically do it? Suppose there's a sadhak, there's an upasak who is extremely competent, very gifted, and has the right purva samskaras from past lives. So he starts the upasana and he follows the rules without single violation. Will he acquire the benefits of the mantra japa, or do you need to add something else? And that something else is where bhakti comes in. Bhakti, or more importantly, even before bhakti, there is Shraddha, which is faith. Faith on a thing that has not yet manifested. It's a bit like when I'm in school, when my son is going to school in class 1, the teacher is telling that how do you, you learn the tables for multiplication or addition or something. He may not know that what is the use of that at this moment in life. For him, it's just a thing that has to be done. Why? That's because the teacher is saying so, the parents are saying so. So there has to be an implicit element of Shraddha on a process that you fully do not understand as yet, because your state is not up to the mark, or you are not yet at that condition where you can comprehend it. But you have that faith, that living faith, that in future perhaps you will reach that state and you will understand. And since it comes from people who have already acquired that state and understood that thing, therefore their words become extremely important and you follow them. So this Shraddha has to be there on the mantra, for the mantra to activate. And this is apart from following all the rituals and rules. Without Shraddha, if a mantra is chanted in the tantric process, it is very likely that one may carry on doing for ages and ages, and one may cross innumerable number of mantra japa, and still there may or may not be a favorable result or some manifestation or anubhuti. In fact, manifestation is not the word. Anubhuti of the devata will not come. It's important to note here that when we say of mantra, the mantra is the devata. In once the mantra marga starts, once the tantric upasana paddhati starts, the upasaka has to absolutely believe with no doubt in his mind, and here, yeah, have absolute shraddha on the fact that the mantra and the devata are non-different. It's like as if you are serving the subtle body of the devata by doing the recitations of the japas that the guru gives you. So shraddha of the mantra is important. Otherwise, the fructification of the results do not happen properly. In fact, not even fructification. Is very likely on a practical note that the upasaka will not be able to continue the path, and very soon he gives up and he feels that, oh, this is not working, or this is maybe something wrong with me, or perhaps this is not the thing for me. So these kind of things happen and in reality. So it is important, therefore, that one has complete faith on what the mantra that is given to them and the mantra devata, that there is no difference, absolutely no difference between the deity, the devata who is being worshipped, and the mantra to whom he or she is being worshipped. The next important aspect where Shraddha and Bhakti comes in is on Shraddha and Bhakti on the Guru. So the tantric path, the Tantropasana paddhati, is extremely guru centric. It is very much that the guru will determine what is the right mantra for an individual, what is the right kind of practice, which deity to worship, which deity one should not worship, etc. In order that this happens, one should have complete absolute faith in the guru. And in order that this faith is not just a verbal statement, the tantras have in certain dikshas, in certain paramparas, it comes right at the beginning, whereas in certain paramparas, it comes after the second level of diksha, what is known as the Guru Paduka mantras. So the Guru Padukas, okay, before the Guru Paduka mantra, the Guru is somebody who's not just a physical entity. He's like a, to use a modern term, he's like the portal through which the whole vidya, the knowledge that is passed down for generations, for centuries, he is like that. Assume there is a river that is flowing, and somebody who is thirsty wants to come and have a drink of water, and there are only specific places in the river where you can have some water from that is flowing. So those places from where you can drink the water and quench your thirst, those are like the gurus. That is the place, that is the equation that individual Swaguru has with the Guru Parampara. So Swaguru is like an interface to the full Vidya, the whole gamut of knowledge that has been nurtured, practiced, and transmitted for generations after generations by the Gurus, starting right from the initial, the Divya Gurus. So there are Divya Gurus, there are Siddha Gurus, there are Manava Gurus, all this lineage of Gurus, it is there. Having faith on one's guru while doing the upasana, absolute faith it has to be. So one should not, if there is doubt, if there is question, then there is very likely that the sadhana may or may not produce the right result. Uh, it is here that the Guru Paduka mantra, it not only captures an element of bhakti for one's Swaguru, then one's Paramaguru, and then one's Parameshti Guru, but it also links one to, for example, the fountainhead of the whole stream, the whole Vidya, which is Ananda Bhairava, Ananda Bhairavi, all the great divine gurus, divine beings, is not just normal gurus. They are the beings through which the knowledge came to us. The same way that Bhairava is the uh, is the one of the primary gurus, divine gurus of the tantric path. It's through his kindness, through him, that the Kola Marga and the other margas were given to ordinary people. And this conception is there even when we are doing, for example, a mantra anushthan of say Kali, Dakshina Kali, and it tells you that the rishi of the mantra is Mahakal Bhairava. It basically means that Mahakal is acting like a guru. He has done the upasana first, integrated that energy, that vidya, and then given it to the world. So that every time anybody is initiated into that vidya, he has to start with at least a little bit of reverence to the rishi of the mantra. This is and there are places where the rishi has to be placed in the body, so that the anugraha of the rishi comes in. Because without that, and without blessings, without the blessings of the guru, who is also the swaguru, there is very little chance that the mantras, the sadhana, will actually lead to something fruitful, something that is transformative, which is the final aim of the of the process of the tantric upasana. So, Guru Parampara, Bhakti and the Guru Parampara is important. In this regards, it's important to mention that there is another, apart from the formal stream of Tantra Vidya, which is right now we have the Kali Kula and the Sri Kula. There is also the Sabar Tantras, which come from the Nath Yogas, the Navanath, who are popular both in Maharashtra, as well as we find evidences of them appearing in Bengal, as far off as places like Kamakhya, then even places like Himlaj, which was one of the Shakti Pitas, which is not there in India anymore. So these 9 Naths were legendary yogis of unimaginable caliber, and they popularized Tantra sadhana for the masses, with one difference, that they said that since people do not know Sanskrit, we will give them mantras which are non-Sanskrit. So the only criteria of a Sabar mantra is that it is not in Sanskrit. It could be in any language. It could be Hindi. It could be Awadhi. In fact, by this definition, you may even call the Hanuman Chalisa as a Sabar Vidya that was given to the masses. So the tantric sampradayas that came from the Nath yogis, and they are still extremely popular across North India. Guru Bhakti is even more important there. In the sense, the Guru is going to initiate an individual and give him a Guru mantra. By repetition of the Guru mantra, he, having Shraddha on the Guru mantra and repetition of the Guru mantra, he connects himself to the stream of knowledge that is passed down from the Gurus. So if there is a break in the Anushthan of the Guru mantra, it is very likely to manifest in some time in the Upasaka's life as for some reason or the other, he will not get the required guidance that should have come to him had he followed the instructions of the Guru. So faith in Guru is absolutely important, with one condition. Today, in general, there is a popular perception among many average people that, to use a phrase from Hindi, "Sirf bhavi kafi hai," which means that if you just have the right emotion, that's all that gods need, and you don't need anything. You don't need a devata, doesn't require anything. That is naive, that's lazy, and that's unfortunately a manifestation of one's personal ego, that a misunderstanding of the way one has to approach a devata upasana. So here, when we talk about Shraddha and Bhakti in the Tantric path, it is important to have Shraddha and Bhakti not only on the Devata, but that should manifest as following the path recommended for the Devata. So if a particular mantra, it's put it very simply, if you're worshipping Vishnu, you offer Tulsi. If you're worshipping Shiva, you offer Vel Patra. If you're worshipping Devi, you offer Kumkum, etc. So this is like a path that has been set for centuries by people, Purvacharyas, by the Shastras, by the great divine masters, etc. So as Upasaka, the Upasaka's role is to follow the path that has already been set by them. If you violate this and try something funky and weird because you try to pass it off as that, I just have faith and that's all you need, in the the simplest result that would occur is that there will be no result. Your upasana is going to fail. You can try for hundreds of years. Or worst case, if you are worshipping a deity who is more ugra in nature, you may actually end up experiencing something that is sort of not particularly favorable. And that is where you will need to again go back to your guru to find out what mistake you made. So, Shraddha on the path, Shraddha on the Devata in the Tantric system specifically involves following the well-established rules of sadhana that has already been given and not violating them. And these rules of sadhana come from the Shastras. So, Shraddha means Shraddha on the Guru Parampara, Shraddha on the Shastras, from which these are coming. Because most people in this age simply do not have the capacity to make any change in the sadhana paddhatis which have been perfected for thousands of years by people of far, far greater competency than anyone here today. So we have faith that these have been perfected. We follow that according to our capacity and according to the instructions that a Swaguru gives. Now, another aspect of how Shraddha comes into play, there are certain pujas, specifically certain kriyas and anushtanas where you have to invoke at least the three order of gurus, Paramaguru, Paramishti Guru, and uh, and the Paratpara Guru and the other gurus. Three generations of gurus have to be not only invoked but placed at three different directions as guardians of the mandala when you are sitting. So they are not. It's not like they are somebody who passed away long back, so they are not there. No, great masters, once they give up their physical presence, they become even more powerful in their astral or their subtle presence or their psychic presence, etc. So to have reverence and faith in them, in the three generations of the gurus and the Guru Parampara, means you get certain protection from them. So even if the guru is also like a mother, so there is a mistake. Suppose, and mistakes happen to everybody. Even the best of Upasakas can make a mistake. It is the blessings of the Guru that can help one to overcome and direct one towards the prayashchitta that needs to be done so that the mistake does not compound into something more problematic. So that is one aspect. There is another aspect of, I'll just take 5 more minutes. I think my time is coming up. So another aspect of bhakti and shraddha is on the devata itself. That is also equally important. We see evidence of this particularly in Bengal, when by the 13th century there were great poets who were Shaktas, formally initiated Tantropasakas, but they also had exceptional devotion to the goddess, or the Kalikula goddesses were worshipped, and they wrote tremendous amount of poetry, tremendous amount of songs dedicated to the goddess, even though they were doing their upasana paddhatis were intact, so they were not tampering with what practices they were actually doing. At the same time, there was an outpouring of tremendous bhakti to the goddess, and uh, this is that extra element that is required for the sadhana to become successful. Unless that bhakti comes in, that shraddha on the goddess, that one pointed devotion that I need to reach that devata, I need to reach the sannidhya of the devata. And that too, when you're worshipping the Divine Mother, all one thinks of is reaching her feet. That's it. There is nowhere else to go. Once you reach the feet of the Mother, to reach there itself, there is an absolute, there's like that X factor that should come in. Apart from all the rituals, the rules that has been given, something that is a self-giving, a sacrifice from within. And this led to a whole tradition of tantric masters in Bengal who were known as Khepa. Khepa means mad. So their devotion to the goddess was so tremendous that they would do things which may seem completely mad from our perspective. Like for example, Sri Ramakrishna, who is perhaps one of the greatest Shakta saints. So he goes to the Bhavatarini temple and he begs to the mother to have a vision, and he doesn't get it. Eventually, he gets so frustrated, he takes the kharga of the Divine Mother and is about to cut off his head when he sees a vision that Bhavatarini Kali appears before him. And in that vision, there's a complete transformation. That is, he sees that the kharga and the mother, it's like a state of Advaita, not necessarily the Advaitam of the self, but Advaitam of the Devata, where everything becomes that one singular, absolutely brilliant deity whom he's worshipping. And Ramakrishna, the Pujari, the Purahita of a Kali temple, transforms into Ramakrishna, the great saint. So this kind of devotion is also present in the Shakta and the Tantric Sampradayas. But there is a caveat: this should not be followed by ordinary upasakas, because you are very likely to end up, and neither is there the purity necessary to follow this kind of extreme steps. That's why the tantras recommend that once an initiation happens, a person transforms from a pashu to a vira. Vira means one who is struggling against, is fighting against the natural tendencies of life, in order that he may succeed in reaching close to the Ishtadevi whom he is worshipping. And beyond that, there is the divya. The divya is that state where there are no rules for the upasaka. Whatever he does is the rule on himself. So a man like Ramakrishna is of the state of a divya. It cannot be copied by ordinary people like us. So we, as a follower of the tantric path, or anybody who follows any kind of tantric upasana, bhakti and shraddha is absolutely fundamental within the skillful application of the upasana karma kanda that is taught by the Guru Parampara. So as one does the karma kanda and also practices bhakti, it transforms the bhakti and makes it deeper and deeper. Because at day one, nobody is perfect. There is no perfect bhakti, there is no perfect jnana, there is no perfect karma kanda. I mean, if bhakti was perfect, we say in the mantra shastras that even the names of the devatas are mantras. So if we say Shiva, and if we say Kali, and if the bhakti is perfect, the deity should immediately manifest it. But that never happens, because there are too many impurities in the mind body, there are too many misconceptions. So in that state, one should never make the sentimental mistake of feeling that whatever I can do is fine, the deity will accept. No, follow the paddhati that is given in the tantra marga. Along with it, in that paddhati, apply bhakti, where bhakti becomes like the fuel that makes that same upasana far more effective, far more fruitful, and far more enriching. So with that, I would like to, I think the time is up already. I have to conclude the talk. So bhakti is absolutely, and we see this even in the Devi Mahatyam. We have this stuti to the Divine Mother. It mentions that of all the qualities she manifests, one of the qualities is that she is also Shraddha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shraddha Rupena Samstita. She is the one who gives the bhakti. She is the one who can withdraw the Shraddha also. So that's all. Namaste.
Thank you, Rajarshi, for a wonderful and very concise presentation on the role of bhakti in the Tantra Marga. I think that this is an important thing, important element, aspect to that bhakti, which is often not realized because there is too much of misinformation about Tantropasana currently. So
Right.
you have added a very important dimension to the discussion. Nagaraji, do you want to add any other comment?
Yeah, the same point that you were also making. Thank you, Rajarshi ji. Actually, what happened in the course of colonial education is there is a lot of unnecessary differentiation that happened between, for example, Tantra and Bhakti also.
Yeah.
What they introduced in the school syllabi is that there is something called as a Bhakti movement. And in the course of those lessons of Bhakti movement, they never include Tantra in that. When Tantra comes to the student, they give a totally different picture away from Bhakti. Same thing happened with yoga also. We heard Jammalamada Krishna. They wanted to show that yoga is different from Bhakti. Yogis are not Bhaktas. So all these unnecessary differentiations are now in this symposium. Thankfully, because of people like Rajarshi ji, we are able to police and show how these are unnecessary distinctions that have been created through colonial education. Thank you very much, Rajarshi.
Namaste.
Thank you again.